Hey crafty people, welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! So today we are going to work on the first of our 12 months of Christmas cards. I have got bits and pieces left over from a card I was going to do this past Christmas. That's 2013's Christmas, and ended up never getting around to finishing it, but I did start it. Now, what I've got on my desk right now is these little die cuts. It's a little tiny village. It's so stinking cute. Is a die by Memory Box. I don't know if it's still available, but you can use whatever you got to create this piece that will fit inside of the snow globe you're using. This is a Lawn Fawn die set for creating the snow globe, and it has a die that cuts out just the snow globe base completely, and it has a separate die that cuts out the window for it. And then it's got like little hillsides, snowy hillsides for going inside your snow globe. And I was originally thinking that I was going to make this a shaker card, but I decided with how much layering I'm planning on doing to create my scene inside the snow globe that it would not be great as a shaker card. So I've nixed that idea, and I'm just realizing I need some scrap cardstock because you'll notice the die cuts out the windows. So I like to put like either a cream or a pale yellow cardstock behind to create, you know, the warm glow of inside the windows. So I'm going to need to grab a piece of that. And I am going to also show you how you can create a snow globe if you don't have a snow globe die. So that will be card number 2, because I cut out the village scene twice, thinking I was going to make one snow globe like shaker card and one snow globe non-shaker card. But again, I'm nixing the shaker card idea. Now you can use these to create a shaker card, and I've done it before. I just think because when I started planning this out, I realized I'm going to put a lot of different little layers inside my snow globe, and that's going to cause anything I put in as a shaker to catch on that stuff, and it's not going to work really great as a shaker, given the amount of layering I'm thinking I'm going to do for this card. But you can absolutely create a shaker with this technique. So keep that in mind. So for the first one, this is our little snow globe, and I'm going to start by layering in my snow. So I want to make it so that my snow banks stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to add a little tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink to them. I'm just going to ink the edges a little bit. This, of course, is optional. I'm also feeling like I want to pull out a snowflake stencil and stencil the background on this. So I think I'm going to do that. So I've got, this is a Memory Box stencil. It's Snowflake Lace, and it's 88576. Now, I've had this for quite a while, so I don't know if it is still available or not. So I am just gonna put down a scrap piece of paper so that I don't have to worry about my work surface, and grab a brush, and I'm gonna use that Distress Oxide tumbled glass and ink the background. There we go. It's very subtle, but it just adds a little bit more dimension to the piece, a little more interest. So there we go. I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to bring in my village pieces and my snowdrifts, and let's just make sure we're putting snowdrifts where they're going to be visible. So I think our first snowdrift's going to go there, and actually probably a little bit down, and then the second one will go behind like that. So I am going to grab my art glitter glue and glue those down, and I did kind of offset them just a little bit, which I think will be okay. So I'm gonna pick the two of them up together, or try to. And run my glue underneath where they meet up, and then just add glue to the rest, like so. Flip them over. Stick them down. And there we go, that's our snowy backdrop. Now we need to add our village pieces. So, like I said, I die cut them out twice, and I think, yeah, it's the Canson XL watercolor paper, because what I did was I took Distress ink and inked them up using a brush and some water, and just basically watercolored with my Distress inks. So let me grab some cardstock to go behind. So I've got flat paper from my little scrap collection, and let's figure out which houses we're going to do and start with those. So I want to put the church. I was playing around a little bit with layout earlier, so I want to have the church, and there are two little people, two little carolers. Let's do, have the carolers caroling outside the church. And of course they had to get there somehow, so we've got our little horse-drawn carriage. So that'll be there. Let's see, what houses do we've got have? Let's stick this one back here. Do another one. Do that one. And let's see, can we fit this guy on? Is this guy gonna show? Let's see. He's just gonna fit in the scene. So I think I'm gonna go with that. And I've got some trees. Let's stick that tree there. And I stick that one back there. And I'm using my quick stick, which has that sticky stuff at the end that helps pick up little itty bitty bits. I think I like that. I may add do we need to add that underneath them? No, you can't even see that. Now this is one of those dies, it cuts out all the pieces at once, so you end up getting all the pieces. There's a little snowman. Let's put the little snowman on. I think the only other piece is this light pole, which I think we might be full up on stuff. We'll pass on the light pole. I think this is a pretty crowded scene. So what I'm gonna do is start with this church, and I am just gonna stick it on my paper where I need the paper, kind of thing, and trim around roughly, essentially, because I just want to cover those window holes. So pretty much I'm gonna stick that down, grab my scissors. Uh-oh, I got a tree stuck to the back. Yeep. That's why it wasn't sitting flat. I'm like, why is this not sitting right? All right, and then just quickly trim around. So see, that just looks so much better where you've got the windowage behind. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for all of my buildings, and I'll be right back. All right, so they are all backed with the cream colored cardstock. and we are gonna just do our assembling. So I've got this, but the tree's going behind the church, but in front of the little red house. So we're gonna put the red house down first. I'm also gonna grab my tweezers. This is one of those invaluable tools. It's a set of reverse tweezers where when you're not using them, it's closed. Makes for attaching little bits and bobs so much easier, because you can basically do that and grab your glue and add glue, and then you just have to release it to set it down on the page. So there we go with that. I'm gonna do the same with our little stick tree here. And when you're creating a scene card like this, don't be afraid to layer stuff so that, you know, we're not seeing all of the tree, because it's partially behind our church, but you do see some of it, so it's just adding a little more interest. I'm not too bothered by the fact that the steeple part of the church is not sticking down. Again, since we're not making it a shaker card, not a big deal. Let's add our carolers. I'm just gonna add a little glue to the back. I think I'm gonna stick the rest of the back row on. Now, if you don't have this die set for the houses or a similar die set, you can do whatever you want inside the snow globe. You could definitely do stamped images, other die cut shapes, like whatever you have is you can use to create this little type scene in your snow globe card. So just look around at your stash and find something that's going to be sized right for your snow globe and go with it. And I think I may have moved that house over further to the left than originally planned, which tends to happen. There's another tree, so let's go ahead and grab the other tree. Like it cuts out 2 of the evergreens and 2 of the sticky trees. So might as well add 2 evergreens. That I cut out a snowflake as well, so might as well stick that on to our sky. I actually kind of want to do 2 snowflakes. Yes, no. And what do you think? Actually, what you really need is 3 snowflakes. I may cut out some extra snowflakes. So I may do that in a second and add a 3rd snowflake there. But let's work on the rest of the assembly for this. So I've cut out my snow globe with the cutaway 3 times. And I've cut out the full solid piece out of plastic. I don't know if you can see it. This is just a piece of packaging material. And what I'm going to do is sandwich that between my top layer and my 2nd layer of the snow globe piece. Let's go ahead and do that. Just be careful when you're gluing acetate. You don't want to put glue too close to the edges where it might smoosh out onto your acetate. And I do have a few spots where the acetate's sticking out because the plastic did not die cut great when I cut it, so I ended up rough cutting it out. But we can trim up once we are finished layering everything up. Now I'm going to add this piece on. Again, be mindful you don't want to go too close to your edges where the acetate is, otherwise you might have glue smoosh out onto your acetate. And then just to help create some separation between the acetate and our scene, I cut it out a third time and we're just gonna add that on. Now you could also use foam tape to pop this up off of the piece. And looking at this, trying to decide if I need another layer because everything's so thick. It seems to be fine at the bottom. Plus, if I'm going to do another snowflake, I need to do that before I attach this. So I'm going to go die cut another snowflake and think about whether or not I want to add another layer of this before I attach it down, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back, and apparently I lied to you. This die set is not all one die. I apparently just never cut them apart from each other. So I figured I'd clarify that because yeah, I went to cut out more snowflakes and realized, oh look, I just need to cut them apart. I also cut out some snowflakes from a different memory box set so that we can have some variety in our snowflakes. So I'm just gonna add a few more snowflakes to the background. I'm looking for the tool that's attached to the quick stick to flip over. Come on, flip. Now, generally when I do something like this, I try and stick to odd numbers because odd numbers tend to be more visually appealing than evens. So we're gonna add one more. Let's pull this in and see where we want to stick it. I feel like right there is where I want to put the last snowflake. Here. There we go. All right. So that's going to go on top. Let me trim off my excess bits. All right. And I did cut it out one more time out of brown, which I think I'm going to attach the whole thing to because this got a lot of weight added onto the cardstock base, the blue base, and so it'll just make it a little sturdier. Now another idea I had as I was making this is you could add a hanger to it, like a loop of ribbon or baker's twine or something like that, and attach it on your card front in a way that the recipient can then remove it and turn it into a Christmas tree ornament. That would be a cute idea. Just getting that lined up, glued down, and I decided not to do another layer, and I think it's going to be all right. And so there's what our snow globe looks like. I really still have some bits sticking off the end. I feel like I can't get close enough with scissors, and I'm going to cut myself with a craft knife. Because essentially, basically I just want to shave along there to try and get that off. That's not working so great either. So definitely feel free to, if you're doing this, trim up your piece a little bit smaller, your acetate piece, so that you don't have the issue with it sticking out. And it's one of those things you can't notice it except it reflects the light. And that was kind of annoying me, the way it catches the light. So, all right, there's that one done. Now I'm going to show you how to create a snow globe if you don't have this type of die. And we're going to finish this up in a minute once we get the other one done and put it on a card base. All right, so what I'm using is, I decided I wanted to create mine as an oval shaped snow globe. So I've got 2 nesting oval dies. You can use circle dies, you can use circle punches. You just need 2 that are going to nest together to create the opening space. And then we're going to do a strip for the bottom that will serve as like the base of the snow globe. So what you're going to want to do is grab your piece of paper, line up your 2 nesting dies so that they're the smaller ones kind of centered in the larger one. And this piece is just big enough. I did double check. Just gonna do those. And then take some low tack tape to tape them together, because if you want to cut out multiples, so this will work better with dies than with punches, just because you're gonna have to work a little harder to get all of your punched out pieces exactly the same than you will with the dies, because I can just tape my pieces together and then switch, add more paper, and not have to worry about them having shifted because they're taped together. So I am gonna go, now that I've showed you the basics for how to do this, I'm gonna go and die cut out all of the pieces for creating another one of these. So I cut out my 3 layers of ovals and my piece from the clear plastic. Now I'm gonna admit something here. I do not love working with like the plastic from packaging. I feel like it scratches really easily. I much prefer craft plastic, but I figured pretty much everyone has access to plastic from packaging in this day and age. So I decided to use that. So I was sure it was something everyone would be able to use. Now I realized after I die cut this, that this is not solid core. So I don't know how well you can see on screen. The inside is white. So I'm gonna grab some vintage photo and just ink that up so that the white isn't showing, because that's kind of bugging me. Yeah, if you're not, necessarily into distress inks and such, I still highly recommend getting at least one like brown dye-based ink, because they work great. Although you could probably use a pigment ink, and a dauber for doing stuff like this where you've got white showing that you don't want to show. All right, we're just gonna glue this together. All right, I'm trimming this up before I glue the pieces together to get rid of any excess showing, because it's going to be a little bit easier, because you saw I didn't add a ton of glue, so I can actually like peel it away from the brown piece and get it trimmed down so nothing will be sticking out on this one. Theoretically. There we go. You can kind of slip the scissors in between the 2 pieces and trim it so that it's smaller than. All right. So yeah, this I should have done the first time around, is just gone in and trimmed it up as soon as I stuck it down to this, because I can just peel up and trim off. And so basically trim away any excess I'm just double checking everywhere. All right, now I'm gonna just layer these guys up, and then we're gonna create the base, and then we're gonna cut out the blue cardstock, and it'll make sense in a minute, hopefully. And again, that glue's a little too close. I'm afraid it's gonna smoosh out, so I'm just gonna clean those spots off with my finger. Okay, so now that we've got the globe part of our snow globe done, we need to create a base for it. And what I'm gonna do is just pull out my ruler and decide I want it to go about there. So I need a piece that's about 3.5 inches. If I'm cutting it 3.5 inches, it's gonna go up about there. So if I line that up with a mark on my mat, it's from the top part here to the bottom part there is about 1 inch. It's got a little bit more, which is good because that's what I want. So I'm gonna cut out a piece. Okay, I think this scrap's officially small enough that I can throw it out. All right, so we now have our 3 strips that we're gonna end up layering up with our oval. And to get it looking a little nicer and a little bit more like the base, I'm gonna round all of the corners. And think there for a second because I spent a good chunk of yesterday tidying my craft space and moving stuff around, and so now I've got to remember where I moved stuff to. So I'm using the 1/4 inch on my We Are Memory Keepers corner rounder, and I think I'm gonna keep the bottom squared off because I think that will do a better job of creating our illusion. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So we'll just round the corners on the top of each of these. And again, I'm gonna ink around these pieces because not solid core cardstock. Okay, so let's glue on the first one. So that's gonna create our snow globe scene shape. And actually I'm thinking I may only need 2 of the pieces after all because of the way we're assembling it. So I think I'm gonna just do that. And now I'm gonna take my blue paper and stick it down at the bottom corner and trace around it and hand cut that out. All right, that's a little bit off the mark. I'm gonna need to do a little trimming up. So we're just gonna go around and trim a little off. now we're gonna do essentially what we did before with the other piece. Now for our snow drifts, what I'm gonna do is cut a couple pieces of paper of white cardstock. Let me grab that. This piece is, oh look at that, 3.5 inches. I'm gonna cut it down to a 3-inch piece. And then I'm gonna kind of freehand our hills. So you don't need a die. You can just kind of cut a curvy bit out. I'm gonna smooth that up a little bit. Maybe make that peak a little less pointy. And now we've got our two hillsides for going inside our snow globe, and it should fit just right. Look at that. Just right. This one's a little short, but I think depending on how we angle things, you won't be able to tell. So there we go. I am gonna ink those again. Very subtle, just adding a little depth and dimension to our background. And then our hillsides again, we're gonna add those in. What I'm gonna do is kind of line it up on the background, because yeah, it's a hair, like this is got to be a little bit more precise in attaching than the other one, because it's a hair narrower, because I did 3 inches, but it goes out, so probably should have done 3¼ inches wide would have been better. All right, I think I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. I think going like that. What I'm gonna do is gonna grab my Barely Arts glue, because that gives me a little bit more wiggle time. I'm gonna add a line of glue. I'm gonna unclog my glue bottle and add a line of glue along the top here so that I can line up this piece in the window. So that I get it lined up so that we're not gonna have a gap. So we're gonna put that on like that. I'm gonna flip this over. Oop, let's not shift it. Apply the glue to the back again. Flip it over. Make sure we've got it right. And kind of line it up like that. So there we go, that's good. So there are snowdrifts. It looks a little off when the top piece isn't on, but it's fine once we put the top piece on. So we're all good there. Now let's start adding our buildings. And I think I'm gonna switch it up this time and not put the church on and just do all of the houses. So let's do our layout. I am gonna put a ruler down because, yeah, the wonky angle of the snowdrifts is really messing with my head. So I think by having that there, I can then use it as a baseline for attaching my pieces. All right, so there we go. And now we can add that piece on. Okay, so we now need to turn these into finished cards. So what I think I'm gonna do for the card base is just do a panel of red cardstock and emboss it with an embossing folder. And then this comes with a little like strip die for putting a sentiment on here. I think I'm going to do that. And for this one, I'll just cut the sentiment out on a piece of white cardstock. So I am going to go and emboss the card bases so that we can finish these guys up and have them fully assembled. And get out my ink and stamp Merry Christmas and get those pieces ready, and I'll be back. Okay, so we went ahead and did a few things off screen just so we can get these cards finished up. As I said, I pulled out an embossing folder. This is by Sizzix, and just embossed some red cardstock. I stamped and die cut the sentiment that's going to go on this snow globe. And then I stamped and cut out the sentiment for this snow globe. And both the sentiments are by Fawn. I have no idea which Christmas set they came from, because I have so many Fawn Christmas sets. So that's where the sentiments came from. I also decided I wanted to break up the red a little bit, so I cut a couple pieces of ribbon, and I've gone ahead and cut and folded my card bases. These are pieces that are 8.5 by 5.5 folded in half to make 4.25 by 5.5 card bases. So let's start with this guy. And what I like to do, I'm gonna center the ribbon, and I like to have just a little bit to go over the edges because I feel like it secures them down, and then you don't have like frayy bits at the edge of your card from cutting the ribbon off. And it's not that much ribbon that's going to get essentially wasted because you won't be able to see it. So I'm going to grab, I've got Fabri-Tac, so I'm just going to run a bead of glue down the center of this piece of ribbon. And then I'm just going to glue that down to my card base. I'm going to use my art glitter glue for this. And let's pull that off. Switch this around. Let's try this again. So when I put cardstock on a folded card base, I like to butt it against the folded edge. This way, if I have to trim anything off, it's white showing at the bottom where I can easily trim it off, or on the side here like that. And I'll just grab a pair of scissors and trim up, because I don't care what they say. The manufacturing process of paper does not always lead to pieces that are exactly the same size, even when they're 8.5 by 11. So let's add this. Gonna go there, and I feel like it needs something there, so I pulled out some gems, and we're just gonna pop a couple gems on the end. Let's see, is that gonna fit? Yeah, that'll fit fine. I used to use gems all the time, and I'm finding I don't use them as often, so I'm trying to make sure like I use the stuff I have. That is one of my main crafty goals for 2024, is to use stuff, and hopefully for some of the things use the stuff up so that it is no longer taking up space in my craft stash not being used. All right, so one more thing I wanted to do, since we had extra buildings, is put the extra building, ooh, let's get that a little straighter, because that looks seriously funky right there, is use them on the inside. And please excuse my dog who's barking outside. I don't know what his issue is, but yeah, he's a beagle and he's outside, so he must bark for everyone. So we're gonna put the little snowbank down. All right, let's do the last one. All right, so there we go. 2 snow globe cards, and I now have 2 cards for my stash for this Christmas. Yay! So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. And even if all you do is do a smiley face in the comments, it really does make a big difference over how my videos get viewed by others. So I'd really appreciate it if you did that. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.